from MTN, the Montana Television Network. This is Face the State.
We are here to honor heroes who lost their lives in the line of duty.
It's also my job to make sure that nobody ever forgets Joe. And as long as I'm alive, we won't forget.
You've all had time enough to cry.
Emotional, but very needed event, you know, to kind of help bring light to the end of the tunnel kind of thing. Not going to cure everything, but it's going to help everybody take the next step.
Stand with pride and say goodbye.
This program is made possible in part thanks to the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communication on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans.
Good morning and welcome to Face the State. I'm Shannon Newth. Across the country, it's been a turbulent year for law enforcement. Trust has been tested, community relations strained. Amidst the uncertainty comes a glimmer of hope and a chance for restoration. Thousands of officers and law enforcement supporters gathered in Washington, D.C. May 10th through 16th for National Police Week. The yearly event stands in stark contrast to naysayers of those who wear a badge. National Police Week was a time dedicated to honoring the fallen and those who are living heroes. The number of those who have sacrificed, though, is increasing. According to the National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund, an average of one law enforcement officer is killed in the line of duty somewhere in the United States every 58 hours. In 2014, 117 law enforcement officers died in the line of duty. That's a 9% increase over deaths reported in 2013. The main cause for these deaths? Firearms and traffic-related incidents. Both accounted for 48 deaths. Firearms-related fatalities increased, up 45% in 2014 from the previous year. And those numbers hit close to home in Montana, and particularly in Cascade County. Cascade County Sheriff's Deputy Joe Dunn was killed in the line of duty on August 14th, 2014. Deputy Dunn was struck by a vehicle on Highway 89 between Great Falls and Belt during a high-speed pursuit. That traffic incident sent shockwaves through our community. Thousands lined the streets to show respect and attended a memorial service to honor his legacy. A bill was later signed into law establishing the Joseph J. Dunn Memorial Highway to serve as a reminder of sacrifice and safety. His name is also part of a new law enforcement memorial recently erected in Great Falls. The 33-year-old left behind a wife and two young children who remember their husband and father as a man of great strength, compassion, and faith. The man accused of killing Deputy Dunn is Adam Sanchez Jr. Prosecutors say Sanchez deliberately hit Deputy Dunn as he was placing spike strips on Highway 89 east of Great Falls. Sanchez is currently serving a 20-year sentence in the Montana State Prison in an unrelated case. Attorneys for Sanchez filed a motion requesting a change of venue, arguing that he would not receive a fair trial in Cascade County. Sanchez's trial is set to begin September 28th in Yellowstone County. Deputy Dunn's name is one of more than 20,000 found on the National Law Enforcement Memorial in our nation's capital. Dedicated in 1991, the memorial is made up of two 304-foot marble walls. The names on those walls date back to the first known law enforcement death in U.S. history in 1791. Names of new fallen officers are added to it each year. Thousands of people visit the peaceful memorial yearly to honor those who have died. Now, directories point visitors to the exact location of the wall of the names of those they're looking for. And a paper here is provided so people can take a copy and make an etching here. This that you see here is Deputy Dunn's name from the memorial, and many copies of these were made of Joe's name and brought home back to Montana. The National Law Enforcement Memorial was a humbling and fitting place to begin the events of National Police Week. Many were in attendance from Montana to honor Deputy Dunn and fellow comrades in an emotional ceremony.
James Patrick Morrissey.
273 names.
Maloney Willie
Wellington Heath.
156 prior year fatalities, 117 names of officers killed in the line of duty in 2014. From Montana, a single name.
From the state of Montana, Joseph James Dunn I.
An overwhelmingly powerful image of law enforcement officers, survivors, and supporters holding up candles as a symbol of strength and remembrance as a blue light pierces through the dark. The Candlelight Vigil is a very real representation of the bond formed through tragic loss.
Knowing my kids are not alone, that we're not alone.
Every person you see sitting here is feeling what we're feeling.
Gratitude for those who have sacrificed was felt even before the candles were lit, as thousands of people packed the memorial to get a glimpse of the engraved names. Survivors were escorted and given a hero's welcome along the reflecting pool. All the support and the family-like community that's quickly formed is something Robin calls beautiful.
We will always be there for you, and like you, we will never stop honoring his or her memory.
Hundreds of others from across the United States will bear the burdens and grieve alongside those who've lost a loved one in a way few others can.
And to know that they're coming here to hear Joe and to hear his name called and to pay respect to him, it's very special.
National Police Week was also meant for relaxation, learning, and sharing. Thousands of survivors and officers attended seminars intended to provide support. Although the physical and emotional toll of the week was evident on those in attendance, restoration happened in sharing stories of fallen loved ones. Stories are part of the human experience. They're how we pay tribute, remember, and honor those who've made an impact. After a mentally and emotionally challenging evening at the Candlelight Vigil, many survivors are finding solace in each other and in bringing to life the memory of their hero. Deputy Cody Bordeaux was not only a colleague, but a close friend of fallen Cascade County Sheriff's Deputy Joe Dunn.
Phenomenal. He's one of the people that you don't have to worry about whether is my backup going to be there, are they going to help me out. It was unquestioned. If he was on shift, he was there. Countless days our shifts, we always got the tail end, the crappy shifts because the new guys on the shift. But we'd overlap, so we'd always get to meet up and talk, and it was always fun.
Joe's family is remembering the man behind the badge, his character.
He was the epitome of a servant and a humble guy that just selfless, would put everybody else's needs before his own. So we knew him in the capacity of a family man, and he was exactly that.
Joe's family and friends are learning from another Montanan who is one of the few who can truly identify with the grief and loss. Joyce Kramer lost her son, Officer Patrick Kramer, in October of 2006. While serving as a West Yellowstone police officer, he responded to a call on an icy road. He hit a patch of ice, flipped his vehicle, and died instantly when he hit a tree. At that time, Montana didn't have a chapter of COPS or Concerns of Police Survivors, and the Kramers had little support in living with a line of duty death. Joyce is helping to change that culture.
I want to reach out to help someone else, and it's a healing piece for me as well. It helps me cope with the support if I can give back to another family that has to go through the same tragic event.
Helping rebuild shattered lives is what Joyce is doing for the Dunn family and what all of National Police Week is about for those who wear the badge and those who support those who wear the badge. The capstone event of National Police Week took place on the U.S. Capitol building lawn. That's where thousands of survivors and law enforcement officers gathered for the National Peace Officers Memorial Service. Their keynote speaker, President Barack Obama, called on Americans to honor law enforcement and work to repair relationships. Take a listen to part of his speech.
We cannot erase every darkness or danger from the duty that you've chosen. We can offer you the support you need to be safe. We can make the communities you care about and protect safer as well. We can make sure that you have the resources you need to do your job. We can do everything we we have to do to combat the poverty that plagues too many communities in which you have to serve. We can work harder as a nation to heal the rifts that still exist in some places between law enforcement and the people you risk your lives to protect. We owe it to all of you who wear the badge with honor. And we owe it to your fellow officers who gave their last full measure of devotion.
All right, again, President Barack Obama speaking at the National Peace Officers Memorial. I'm joined this morning by Sheriff Bob Edwards of Cascade County, as well as Cascade County Deputy Jason Boyd. Thank you both for being here.
You bet.
So we were all on that trip to Washington, D.C. for National Police Week. So I want to start by reflecting on a few things that we just heard President Obama address and that we heard at that Peace Officers Memorial. So one of the big things that stands out to me, especially as we're considering the environment of our country right now, and we had discussions when we were in DC about this, but he mentions there the efforts to heal rifts between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. It's thankfully not as big of an issue in Montana, but as we look across the country, how do we do that? How do we start going about, it's a big question, but how do we start going about healing the rifts? Is that possible at this point?
Anything's possible. If you look at us here, our law enforcement here in Montana, we're really community based. Mm-hmm. We're out with the kids, we're out with adults. They see that we're not the bad guy. It's not all about going out and capturing criminals and throwing them in jail. It's about community relations. That's a huge part of what we do. We build that trust, and we do it daily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with the sheriff. Just the education I think that we get to provide. In a smaller community, people see us more and get to know us on a personal level more, and they start to understand our job a lot more. In the bigger communities, it's going to start with education in order to, as President Obama said, take care of that rift.
Mm-hmm. Something else he mentioned was trying to provide law enforcement with the resources they need, and we've seen different measurements from the federal government, maybe for or seemingly against helping law enforcement do that. But in this specific comment that we heard from him, he talks about providing the resources needed to help you all do your jobs better. Are there things that you see here at home in Montana that can be done better, or resources that would help you do your job better?
We can always, there's a ton of resources out there that we could use. Right now, some of the things that we would need has been regulated by the federal government, so it's a little tougher for community or like sheriff's office like me with a limited budget to obtain these things. One of the big issues is they think we look too militaristic,
right.
But they don't understand what we have to go up against. So like taking away an armored vehicle to protect 12 SWAT guys against a guy with an AK-47. Mm-hmm. So it's a little tougher to get those things now. We need these resources, and hope the president holds true, and if I need something, I'm going to hold him to it.
Sure. Well, and it's, like you said, funding is a big part of this, and trying to go about getting those fundings. How about you, Deputy Boyd?
I think the change in the job in the last couple of decades, it used to be a report went to the courts, a deputy's testimony, and the evidence, that's what made the court's decision. And now we're expected to have audio, video from other sources, and everything else. And as the sheriff already said, these things cost money.
Right.
And we can't just go on Amazon.com and buy the first video camera we see. There's thousands of dollars worth of cameras and stuff that we would need to be outfitted and stuff for in order to live up to that. Mm-hmm. So.
Right, so it's a continued process of figuring out what needs, and then also the demands. I think as we see more and more of these, at least publicized on a national level through media, these confrontations between police. I mean, you think of Ferguson and Baltimore, those immediately come to mind, and more recently this wasn't law enforcement involved, but just the continued discussion of race comes up, as we've seen recently here in the past week. So for us here in Montana, again, we're thankful. I mean, I can attest to that for our media relations with your office, that we have a great working relationship, and we intend to keep it that way, but it's not that way across the country. How do we work better together as far as on a national level?
I think we could set the example, to be honest with you. I know my office, that was one of my priorities. I know the chief of police, that's his priorities. And I really think Montana can be used as an example for law enforcement throughout the country. Now, people say, well, you're Montana, you don't have to deal with what we deal with. Well, people are people wherever you, I don't care where you're at, they still have that same criminal mindset. We had the Kehoe's brothers that came through Montana, killers. The Unabomber was right here in our own backyard. We just recently had, last year, 2 years ago now, the guy throwing pipe bombs at everybody.
Right.
So we deal with the same things, but smaller scale. But we could be used as an example, I think, because I know every sheriff in Montana, I know a ton of chiefs, I know a lot of officers and deputies. They're all fantastic. We should be setting, others should be looking at us to see what we're doing.
Anything else you'd like
I
to add
totally
to that?
agree. Just the idea, it goes back to the education factor again, and the smaller community. Us in Great Falls or Cascade County, we know you guys. We know our media. And so that facilitates these types of conversations where if they don't know each other, then they're not going to be able to have the type of conversations and the stories about when law enforcement does good, which are way more than when law enforcement does bad, are going to hit the screens and TVs all over a lot more.
Right. So let me ask you this then. What do you think are some of the most common misconceptions of you as people and you as a law enforcement officer?
Oh wow, it's amazing actually. TV kind of puts, you know, your TV shows, your movies kind of puts us in this light of it's always guns and fast cars and throwing people to the ground and things. It's not like that. We do more with our brains and our speech to calm a situation where you don't have to resort to guns and tasers and there's a few out there that we have to deal with that way, but we're not, that's not what we live for. We want to help people. And on a personal level, you know, we do live it 24 hours a day, at least I can speak for myself. I've been doing this for so long, it's just in my brain. That's what I do, it's what I love. But this is no secret, I like to go have a beer.
Right.
We're human. We like to go out to dinner, you know, we like to do things, you know, we like to dress down, shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops. Deputy Boyd here would probably be in shorts and flip-flops, but we're, you know, on TV, which would have been okay, because that's who he is.
Right, right.
But when we pin on that badge and that uniform, we transform. Happens every morning. But we're humans. We really are. We're humans that have a job just like your job.
Right.
You go to work every day excited, you can tell, and that's how we are. But the best thing I can say is we're humans.
Deputy Boyd, you chose not to wear flip-flops today.
I had some on before I got here, but I chose not to, yes. I think the biggest thing, Hollywood makes us into Sylvester Stallone, guys like that back from the 90s and 80s, the movie cop thing. And they have no rules, and the ones that don't follow the rules are the cooler ones. And we're not that way. We're governed a lot more than any other job, really. And to touch on the sheriff's comments about flipping that switch on when we put our uniform on, that all comes from the respect that we have for the uniform. It doesn't necessarily mean just because I have my name tag on it. It's more of the badge and what we believe in the badge and stuff. And people don't always understand that. I like to tell, I've told probably 2,000, 3,000 people in this community that no one that I work with, no one dressed in black or brown or blue or green, whether they're Highway Patrol, GFPD, U.S. Marshals, or Cascade County Sheriff's Office, no one took the job for fame, no one took the job for fortune. They took the job because they want to serve their community, number one. They like to help. And if there's a little bit of excitement in there, then so be it. But number one is they like to help. And I don't know if always people see that in us.
And I can't help but notice when you're talking too, the tattoo that you've gotten to honor Deputy Dunn, who we've mentioned here, but as you're talking, both of you, as well as Robin, Joe's wife, countless other people have talked about Joe's character being one that you just described as not seeking fame, but rather to do the job well. So let's talk about Joe for a minute, because that was the main reason we all went out to Washington, D.C., was to continue his legacy. What were some of the main things? I know, Sheriff Edwards, you and I talked when we were there about this feeling of not being alone, because we're often isolated in Montana, and this thankfully, it's a rare incident. One is still too many, but thankfully it's a rare incident. But how was it to be around others who have similar stories?
Well, it was interesting at first because maybe it was the long day of travel. I'm not sure emotions, we didn't know what to expect. And that evening we were there, it was the first evening, it was like, do we want to be here? Why are we here? There was a little bit of reluctance, at least that's what I was feeling. Some hesitation, but I'm telling you, it's probably the best thing I've ever done. Talking with other survivors, whether law enforcement survivors, families, we are not alone. The pain we feel, there's thousands feeling it. And we all came together as a huge group, and that's how we progressed through the whole thing. We're not alone. It was amazing.
I think the sheriff made a comment on Wednesday or day 3 that we were there that really kind of made me think later on when we got back. I know he does, I have, and Robin has been asked about healing and closure and this and that, and I've discussed this with Robin numerous times. I don't think closure is ever going to be something we experience.
Right.
But it's learning the next step and where we go from here. And the sheriff made a comment where we were just hanging out one night that he said, we all lost something different. Robin lost a husband. The kids lost their father. I lost a friend and a colleague. He lost an employee. And then to add to that, the citizens lost a great guy. I mean, a model citizen and a guy that was willing to put it on the line for them each and every day. And so we took that attitude to DC with us, that this was our loss. And then coming out of it and hearing all the other stories and meeting all the other survivors, it almost opened up my eyes to, well, what else did everyone else lose that may not even have ever personally met Joe? But just by talking to the other survivors and stuff, that's what really I came back with.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty profound impact that changed perspective in a lot of ways.
Oh, definitely. I also say I'm not as tense. I mean, there was some type of relaxation there, whether it was the vacation or just the reasons we were there. It helped a lot.
And we heard from Joyce Kramer a few minutes ago, who is the president of the Montana Cops or Concerns of Police Survivors group, which to my understanding was not really in your mind necessarily when you experienced this loss, and it's a program there to help fellow survivors of law enforcement deaths. And that was another reason you wanted to go, and a takeaway that you and I talked about before we went, that you wanted to get to be able to come back and help others in Montana.
Absolutely. Well, cops, when Joe died, I had no idea about cops. And I didn't realize it's a group of folks that are survivors. There's no volunteers. Everybody involved in cops has suffered the loss. So they understand. Well, and I didn't mean to be rude or anything to these folks, but we had a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, and I'm very grateful for that. Good, kind, caring people, but I wasn't sure who they were, so kind of put them to the side because we had a lot to do. My suggestion now, and I know there'll be administrators watching and other law enforcement watching, if you have the unfortunate in a line of duty death for your agency, reach out to cops. These folks are phenomenal. I can't say enough about them, but I didn't know anything about them. So I want to educate other sheriffs, other chiefs about this organization. And they're tied to the national organization, which was out in DC, which we witnessed. And amazing people. I witnessed them in action in DC with a mom of a fallen officer who just lost it, and I understand that. So they took her aside and they got her squared away, and everything was good because she started to feel that she wasn't alone.
Sure. Deputy Boyd, you're out in the field with fellow officers. You were very close to Joe, but Deputy Dunn, what can you take away from that week to bring back home on your job every day?
It's just a reinvigorance, I guess, on why we do what we do, number one, and number two, that I see the little picture of the blue line that you took at the memorial, that's strong. And it wasn't necessarily something I think I knew at the time. Our office is very close, our local law enforcement's very close, but then being over there with people from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. and everywhere in between that have experienced the loss, do the jobs that we do on a daily basis, I've seen the similarities in us, and I realized that nationwide law enforcement is a strong community, a strong family. Yeah. And that I was able to bring that back and talk to some of the other guys on our patrol teams about and just kind of re-strengthen our close-knit family.
All right, well, Deputy Jason Boyd, Sheriff Bob Edwards, thank you both for joining us this morning, sharing your reflections.
You bet, thank you.
All right, and we want to take one look back now. That event that President Obama spoke at, the capstone event of the week, the National Peace Officers Memorial, really highlights a lot of what the attitudes and emotions were of the week. Take a look.
I'd like to think that I have strong enough convictions.
Very emotional.
My life for something I believe. But the truth is that I've never been put in that position.
Montana,
I'd have to die.
Joseph J. Dunn the First.
It's been very comforting, extremely comforting, and the amount of law enforcement here, just, it's almost majestic.
So tonight I pray.
To you, the families, friends, and co-workers of our cherished departed comrades, is that we will never forget their memories, and we will never let this country forget the sacrifices.
We can work harder as a nation to heal the rifts that still exist in some places between law enforcement and the people you risk your lives to protect.
Good to see you. Yeah, we're proud of you, man.
You can see all the supporters that were lining the streets here supporting us. So we're feeling the national feel. I don't think it's as bad as what people are saying after what I've witnessed here, which is reassuring, and we all feel appreciated.
It's been an incredibly refreshing week to see so much love for law enforcement. That is my passion. That is my goal in life, is to express my own gratitude to them and to see other people doing it with me this week. So many, it overwhelms my heart.
I think the best way of putting it is it makes you feel small, but it also makes you feel huge at the same time. For a while, I think a lot of us, Robin included, we felt like we were the only ones being affected by this. And then you see all the other survivors' families, you see all the other colleagues and stuff. And so you still feel small because you look at the number and how high the number is and how many people have to be at something like this. But then you feel pretty big because you've got a pretty big supporting cast there.
We could not be prouder of you and all who work so hard to keep us safe. May God bless and keep the fallen. May He comfort the mourning. May He protect the peacemakers.
Those still standing their ground.
This has been a special edition of Face the State, looking at National Police Week and its impact here at home. Thanks for watching. I'm Shannon Newth.
This program is made possible in part thanks to the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communication on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans. You've been watching Face the State, a presentation of MTN, the Montana Television Network.